Kick it.
Yeah. Hello, and welcome back to the Disc Dog Pod. I'm your host, Kirby McIlveen, and this is my co-host,
Jeff Hill.
And today we're going to be talking about fear and shyness in our sport dogs.
And not barking.
That's not Flair. She said, why? So, this is something I don't think a lot of people talk about. It's not a happy subject, but you see it, right? Yeah. It's not something that's talked about very much. And when I say like fear and shyness, I think there's a lot of, in my experience anyway, there's a lot of, courses and materials and articles about dogs that are over threshold and get really excited, like too high, too reactive. Overstimulated, exactly. And there's not a lot about the dogs that get fearful. They kind of retreat back in. They, hide in their little turtle shell and they get kind of shy. They get a little fearful. And I don't, maybe it's just not as common, but I feel like it's not talked about very much. Yet I see it. I see it happen. I've seen it happen to my own dogs. I've seen it happen to other people's dogs. And it's honestly the most heartbreaking thing. And I feel like I found some really great solutions for it. Granted, I'm not going to claim that I'm, master, trainer certified or anything, but just my experience.
You're a master trainer. What are you talking about?
I don't have like training, I'm a canine fitness trainer, but I'm not a behavioralist per se. So, that's kind of outside of my realm. A lot of, these types of issues I feel like are outside of my realm until I get a dog like that. And then I learn all about it. So, I've had several dogs over the years and some have gone through fear periods, through, a little bit of shyness. And I think that's what our episode is going to be about today, is just sharing our experiences with our own dogs and how we've overcome them. And in our cases, our dogs have, ended up being really, really good, even though there have been some sad moments. So, I want to put this out there because I wish that I had this when I was going through some of these things, and there really wasn't much out there. So that's a big reason I want to talk about this topic.
And the biggest thing for me with this subject is we just want the dogs to be happy out there.
Absolutely.
And then when they're not, it's so tough.
Well, the whole point of doing dog sports, doing Frisbee dogs, is for the dogs to enjoy it. I mean, Of course, we as the handlers enjoy it. It's fun. We have a great time. But what fun is it to us if our dog's not enjoying themselves out there? So, nothing more heartbreaking than taking your dog to go do something fun and they're not enjoying it. It's sad. And I think a lot of what happens is it ends up being the environment. It's not the actual sport itself. Sometimes it could be, but we'll talk a little bit more in details because, like I said, we've had several experiences with different dogs and different fears and shyness issues, and building their confidence and getting them back on track and enjoying it is really the goal.
Right.
And I think for a lot of dogs, it's doable. Flair's not shy. She's going to let us know. So let's start with Link, because I think right now Link he's the one that's been kind of going through a fear period recently. And I'm happy to say he's coming out of it. I mean, today took him, and there were noises and craziness and helicopters flying over, trains going by. I mean, all the noises and stuff. And his tail was up and he was like, happy as a clam. He's like, okay, I got the confidence. I'm good. Nothing's going to get me. And that's exactly, what we want to see. So Link had a very, very good day today. But so a little more detail about what Link's going through. I think Link is a pretty confident dog by nature. Ever since I got him, he's really just, chill. He's cool. He's like, let's go. Take me anywhere. He loves people. He loves other dogs. Maybe a little too much. He wants to play with them. He's so sweet. And he's full of love and energy, almost a little too much love sometimes, but he's very sweet, always well-intentioned. I mean, not a mean bone in that dog's body. He's so, so sweet. Pretty confident with stuff. He's never really liked cars, but he always dealt with them okay. So when he's had a couple of these fear periods, which you can talk about a little bit in a second here. But I'm not a stranger to this because I felt like Flash went through these pretty severe fear periods too. I think some dogs have them worse than others. And I don't know if it's a McNabb thing. Flash, when he went through his couple of fear periods when he was a puppy, they were awful. And Link kind of is having the same thing, which for an overall confident dog, it's really shocking to take him out and you see the drastic differences. So, Jeff, I know you're pretty familiar with the whole fear period thing. Maybe you can explain a little bit more about it.
Sure. Fear periods typically happen anywhere from a very young age, just a few months old, up to a couple years old. And you may or may not notice it as you have more and more puppies. You should pick up on it because most puppies and young dogs seem to have them at some point or another. And they usually come out of nowhere for me. I just see it happen just out of the blue. The dog will suddenly, or puppy, will just suddenly be acting different. And you don't necessarily know what it is until you start seeing them shaking or putting their tail down, their ears going down. They're looking to get out of the situation.
Yeah, they're panicking.
And you most often see it when you're out in public, when you're somewhere. You're at the park, or you take them to the mall to walk around and go shopping, or you
Rarely you're going to see this at home. It's usually when you're taking them
at home
somewhere.
They're usually totally fine, and then you take them out and suddenly they change. They're just terrified of everything. And there's degrees of it, but usually when I see a fear period, it's pretty bad. It's fairly obvious, but don't beat yourself up if you haven't been noticing them or picking up on them, because it's taken us years to have any understanding of what's going on.
Some dogs, it's really subtle. You don't really notice it.
So yes, some dogs don't have as much emotion normally whenever they're just hanging out, like a muse.
Sure.
Something,
or there's dogs like Sora that are just fearful by nature. So a fear period doesn't look like anything different.
Right.
We will definitely talk a lot about Sora.
And they could outlast a few weeks or a month or something like that. And you have to be very careful during those times, because if you do the wrong things, that stuff can stick and stay with them potentially forever.
Yeah. And you don't want them to have that fear for forever.
Right.
So, back to Link. So he's been through one fear period. It was last year in August. He kind of went through this. It was about a month. And so he came out of it. He was awesome. Took him to all the finals events, and he was fine going anywhere I wanted to take him, which was great. I was really glad he wasn't fearful while we were traveling, because, sometimes you just don't have time to train stuff while you're trying to get from point A to point B and going all over the place. So I'm really lucky that the fear period fell before we left. And so now he's had another one just this past month. He's pretty much coming out of it, I think, now, because all I see is improvement. And today he was so, so good. So hopefully that just stays steady. So, I think it's important to notice this. And like Jeff said, you don't want to do the wrong thing, which I think is where you flood them with their fear, freak them out, get them more worried. If you're going to address the fear, you need to do it in very small increments. So, one of the things I want to talk about a little bit of some of the tactics that I used with Link based on what his fears are. And Link's fears were loud noises and engine noises. So trains, planes,
automobiles.
And he keeps telling me to watch that movie. And I need to watch it. It's on my list, Ken. It's on my list. I know you're watching. So anyway, all of the noises, motorcycles, like any of those types of really loud, construction noises, those sort of things, he's like, no, I'm not into that. So one of them is cars, which for me, that's a big problem, because, we're around cars all the time. I don't want him to freak out every time he sees something, like a car or motorcycle. We're around that stuff all the time. So, one of the things that I did was some noise desensitization. I can't even talk. It's like a tongue twister. Desensitization. I can't say it, apparently.
Desensitization.
Thank you. Thank you, because apparently I can't talk. Um, so I try to desensitize him to the noise of motorcycles and cars and all those things. So in our house where he's super comfortable, I pulled out some chicken, some ham, his favorite stuff, the best stuff. And I played Harley Davidson noises as loud as I possibly could. And a really good sign for me was that he wasn't fearful at all of the noise itself. That was good. Like at home, just the noise didn't freak him out. So I'm like, well, that's a good start. But either way, I'm still going to start there. And I'd play the noise, toss him a treat, stop it, then play the noise, toss him a treat. And I was doing some different ones. And this is all just stuff that, you look up on YouTube, sound effects, motorcycle noises or road noises, car noises, those types of things, trains, which for us is particularly important for them to be okay with trains because our main competition field, the train goes by. So, it's next to railroad. Well, it's important for them to be okay with that.
And similar to what you do, since we do a lot of agility, there's a lot of noises there with the teeter, especially clang, clang. Some of the other sounds that are there, but the clanging of the teeter is important. We actually have a bunch of different sound clips from agility things. And if we have a dog that's showing some fear, we play those while they're eating their dinner, things like that, the same type of thing.
Sure. Yeah. So it's all desensitizing to just the noise itself first at home where they're comfortable. And, if they're a little bit worried about it at home, what I found, and we'll talk about this more when we get to Sora, but just keep tossing the treats, toss the treats. And then they finally realize, okay, nothing's coming to get me. I'm getting a treat every time I hear that noise. Sweet. And again, I always use something that's their favorite. Chicken, ham, steak. Don't give your, crummy, boring treats, your stale, whatever kibble or whatever you're giving. Rice. Yeah. No carrots, none of your healthy stuff. Give them the meats, the really, really good stuff.
Stinky stuff.
You want it, the more nasty, the more they're probably going to like. Yeah. Give them their favorite thing, okay? Because you want this to be really positive because they're already really afraid of this. So another one that we did, a little unconventional idea that I had for Link, he loves people. And one of his favorite people in the world is Jeff. So I said, Jeff, next time you come up to the park and we train together, I'm going to walk out to the street where you're going to drive by and he's going to be a little concerned that a car is going by. And now, mind you, Link's not terrified. This isn't too much for him, but it worries him a little. He kind of puts his tail down. He kind of has his ears up looking around. He looks at me like, is this okay? I don't know about that thing. And so it's not too much. Just keep in mind, if your dog's really terrified, they're not ready for this yet. You need to build up to this. So I've been building up to this a little bit, standing far away from the roads, treat every time the car comes by. Then, so the unconventional idea was, well, he loves Jeff. So let's show him Jeff's in the car. Maybe he'll finally realize it's people in these cars. Maybe he doesn't understand that it's people inside the cars. And if he can put that together, he loves people. So maybe he'll be a little more okay with cars if, his favorite person comes out of them. So Jeff drove up and, I walked up to the door and he was a little concerned. And as soon as I opened the door, he saw Jeff and his eyes just lit up.
And then I got destroyed. He
just got mauled by Link with his love.
He loves pretty extreme. So yeah. I got all of it. He was just immediately jumped in. He's all over me.
He was like, I saw this car. I'm sure glad to see you. That was so scary. But anyway, so, next time Jeff drove around and came back, he wasn't so worried about the car. He's kind of like, what's in there? What's in that car? And then the second time he's like, oh yeah. This is it.
And then it happened again.
Yeah, so we kind of, using, to me, I call it practical. Like sometimes it's just show them what's there. Show them, find something they like, something that, is positive to them. Show them it's not scary. So in this case, Jeff in the car made the car a lot better. So that's just kind of some examples of what I've done with him. And it's paying off because he's coming out of the fear period and he seems really happy.
And like you mentioned, if it's really bad, you usually have to take him out of the situation or just avoid any kind of
Yes.
situation at all. Keep them at home. When it's
Yes.
really bad, keep them away from everything. And
Yeah, you wouldn't, Link in his fear period, I'm not going to take him to the racetrack to try to get him used
Right.
to that, okay? I stood, he's a little afraid of the trash truck, so I stood in the garage and gave him some treats. Did I go stand in the street next to the trash truck? No, because that's too much for him. You want to do it incrementally so that they're, maybe they're just a little concerned, because most dogs that are fearful like that, they might be a little concerned, but they're not terrified. You don't want tail tucking and just absolutely terrified, because when they're in that flight mode, they're not going to just come out of it because you've got chicken.
right, they'll just get worse.
They'll get worse. So you don't want to traumatize them. Just incrementally desensitize them to the issue. If it's really bad, and it's a fear period, and you're pretty certain that it's just like a puppy fear period, you might want to keep them inside a couple weeks.
And that, so many people say, socialize your dog, socialize your dog. This is where you need to be smart about it. You can't just throw them out into situations if they're showing fear.
Right.
Socialize, yes, when this is a dog that's showing some kind of confidence and things like that. I could take, for example, Cheeky. She has never had fear. She's only 9 months old right now. She's never had fear about anything. So we just take her anywhere and everywhere, and she loves everybody, everything she sees, nothing bothers her. And so for her, it's perfect. But for other dogs, you don't want to be taking a dog that's fearful of people to that outdoor mall or something like that, or to the park where they got kids parties going on and
It's too much.
running around. It's too much. You don't want to overload them. And if you have to, just keep them at home for a while.
Yeah. You don't want to make it worse. I think that's the important thing. And, we will talk about Sora here in a minute, who I think is just prime example. And again, the reason that I wanted to talk about the subject. So why don't you talk a little bit maybe about some of your dogs?
Sure. So the first time I really experienced fear periods that I think I recognized them was with Enzo. I have a feeling that the dogs before that, we didn't know enough about dog training or dogs or behavior or anything, and we simply missed them.
And he was already a little shy by personality, right?
Enzo's a very shy dog. He's the type that he just has eyes for me pretty much. I mean, even with you, it's like he
didn't want to look at me when I threw the frisbee. He's like, he would. The way he looked at me was like, I'm going to pretend you didn't throw that and it was him, but I'm going to go after it.
So with him, basically what evolved was that I didn't really take him to the parks and things like that very often. If there was going to be a lot of people around, I wouldn't take him to the public places. I would just avoid it. Because what I learned was that when I went to competitions, when he was there, he would act terrified of everything. It didn't matter what it was. Just he might be barking. He might get down real low. There's all these different things he would do, all these signs. But when we stepped foot on the field to compete, he did not care about anything else in the world but me. If another dog ran on the field, which happened with him, he wouldn't even know that the dog was there. So luckily for me and luckily for Enzo, that was his out. He was able to get on the field and compete.
He was so driven that he didn't really care, and it didn't bother him.
And he didn't want to go visit other dogs. He didn't want to go visit other people. So I didn't need to take him into those situations.
Yeah.
Whereas a dog like Link is totally different because he is so friendly with people. He should be able to be in those situations and enjoy himself and have fun around people and other dogs and things like that. So you have to look at the dog and see what they want.
Yeah. And Enzo is like that. I mean, he didn't need, that was part of his core personality, that he was shy and he didn't want to meet new people.
So keep him out of those situations. And like I said, because it's the thing he loved the most, he was able to do 100% and excel in it.
And he enjoyed it.
And he loved it, and it made him so happy. That was when all of his fears and everything would go away. And I would just see a different dog out there on the competition field than walking around or, existing any other way. It's when we took one step onto the field, it was just like that everything changed.
And so
every single time.
If you look at that in the big picture, he really loved doing competitions, and that benefited him.
Yes.
I think that's a fair question to always ask is the dog going to enjoy this?
Right.
And
Yes.
I think when you consider addressing fear issues, that needs to be a question that's asked. Is it worth it for, to work with this dog? Is this something that their core personality is going to enjoy? Is there something that they're going to like about this, or is this too much for them? And for me, at least in my experience, I feel like a lot of it is just getting over the hurdle, and they will enjoy it. It's just there's a couple bumps in the road. You've got to, help them a little bit through that, however you do it, and they will eventually enjoy it. For the most part, there's some dogs that really probably aren't, fit to do competitions. Yep. It's not beneficial for them. It's not fun for them. So, in those cases, obviously, I think you take a different route and not do the competition circuit with them.
And luckily with Enzo, what it turned into, because I took this mentality, okay, he wants to get onto the field and compete. That's basically what we did at competitions. I keep him in the RV or in the crate or whatever, and keep him away from things for the most part.
Parade him to tent to tent.
Right, not visiting people. But here's the thing: what it turned into after just a few years was he just put his head down, and it was like he had blinders on, and he didn't care about anything else. And when we would walk through people and things, he would just get down a little bit low, and he would just look straight ahead, and he would just try to ignore everybody.
He's like, "Let's go."
and I always moved with a purpose with him. We're going from here to here. Let's do it. We go do it. And he learned that that's what we did. Oh, when you let me out, we're going to go play. He didn't care about anyone now. Now all these people are around him. Dogs are barking. Everything's happening. He didn't care.
Yeah, that's always the hope, right? At the end of the day is that, you manage the situation in a way that, dog's happy at the end. They
right.
get to do what they want. They, succeeded in the end.
And it's just to say that I practice what I preach. Our second dog that we had, Mindy, she was the most reactive dog I've ever seen. And so after a couple of years of trying to get her to go out and do agility and things like that, we realized this dog can't do it.
Yeah, it wasn't fun for her.
So we simply kept her home. So she never went. So most people don't even know her. You rarely even saw her.
Yeah, I didn't see her much unless I came over to your house because she didn't want to go to the things. And,
right.
I actually have a dog that was like that too. And it was Snap. That's my mom's little Yorkie. He loved Frisbee, but he didn't like to go out and do it in public. And it was just not in him to go do that. He's just not very social. He likes to be in his own little bubble at home, and he loved to do rollers in the backyard and play tug and all of that. And would I have loved to go out there with a cute little Yorkie, and he would have been like the star of the whole event probably because he's so flippin' cute. But he wouldn't have enjoyed it. Anytime that I took him out places, he was like, just please pick me up, hide me, let's go home. And he just never had that social thing. He never wanted to do it. He loved Frisbee, but he wasn't driven enough that he didn't love it so much that he's like, yeah, let's go to the park and do it. Right. So it was his favorite thing in the backyard. So, I kind of have the same thing as, I didn't push him. He loved it in the backyard, and that's where we played.
Yep.
So, did you want to, I don't know,
sure, I could,
a couple other dogs. I don't know if you want to touch on them because Sora, I got a lot to talk about with Sora.
The other dog that I'd like to talk about that was had a lot of fear issues was Key. Mm-hmm. And
I think if you didn't know her, you wouldn't know that.
Right. If you've seen her compete, first of all, you're lucky because she's pretty freaking awesome. She had epilepsy, and it was severe. And that factored into it because that kind of messes with her brain. And her epilepsy was so bad, she got to eventually where she was unable to even function just in basic life. But when she was still rocking and rolling and playing Frisbee and agility, she started having fears, and it was with sounds. And this came up.
She was 4?
Or I'd say around 3 maybe. And it was right around when the seizure started. And so she didn't really have any fear periods as a puppy very often or anything like that. She was pretty stable. And then one day I'm playing Frisbee with her, practicing freestyle, and I tried to, well, at the time I didn't know what I was doing, but I ended up figuring it out that I was sending her through like a setup move. And every time I go do a setup move, she would refuse it. And I'm thinking it's a setup move, and she always did them and was always really happy about it. Like, they're so simple, right? No reason to be afraid of a setup move. And I, this is part of what you need to do as a good dog trainer and a dog owner, is you got to start thinking like they do, maybe, or getting into their head, or trying to understand what's going on and evaluate every little detail of it. And I just started breaking it down. What's going on with these setup moves? Is it all the setup moves? Is it certain ones? And what I realized I did, I started going through my own procedure, or what I do. I would always click the discs together.
Clap them. And
I clap them together. And that was like I use that as an indication. I did that with all of my dogs. That whenever they hear that, they know we're going to do a whatever kind of setup move.
Yeah.
And it hit me, that's a noise. And I started noticing she was not wanting to catch the discs. She would go to them and maybe not try to catch them. And whenever she had a hard bite,
the discs made a noise, so then she was afraid of the disc.
So she was afraid of the disc. So she became afraid of the disc. It wasn't the setup move. The setup move had nothing to do with it.
The setup move was the previous thing that's going to lead into the Frisbee,
yes.
which is now scary. So she's going to avoid the setup move. If I'm thinking in the dog's mind, which is, what you've got to do. If I'm thinking like Key, if I avoid the setup move, I avoid the Frisbee,
right,
which is the scary thing. I avoid the clicking.
So once I realized this, okay, how am I going to fix this? And with her, she loved the tug. I mean, she was a disc destroyer. She was all 27 pounds, micro dog, but she was ferocious on the disc, and she loved the tug. So what I started doing was I went with a soft disc to tug, and I would tug with her like crazy. And then every once in a while I'd switch in the hard disc. When she grabbed it really hard and it would go clang in her mouth, clunk, I would tug. And when she started tugging, I would just keep tugging and tugging and tugging. And then I go back to the soft one. I just kept doing that again and again and again. And then I worked up to where I was able to do multiples with her. And it'd go clunk, 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 one after the other. But I completely dropped me clapping the discs together.
It was unnecessary.
It's unnecessary, and I don't ever do it anymore with any of my dogs because of her. It's not because I don't believe in it or something like that. I got into the habit of not doing it. And so now
it's easier to just keep it out.
Just keep it out, because it can't lead to anything good, apparently.
And I think that's a really good point is, some of these things, it's like, pick your battles. It doesn't really matter that it's not that big of a deal that he's afraid of the discs clapping, because you can easily take that out and it doesn't affect anything.
You have to be able to recognize that was the problem, or contributing to the problem. And that's the key, right?
It is.
Just to being able to recognize it and figuring out what the problem is, and then how to fix it, of course. So I went through that whole process, and I gained her confidence way up. And when I did that, instead of sticking with the hard discs that make the noise, I decided I'm going to only throw soft discs for her. So I was throwing the Hyperflex discs, which are the purple Hyperflight discs, and they're much softer. And I learned how to throw those and use those because
they don't make as much noise.
They make virtually no noise. Yeah. And I did that and basically cured all of her problems in disc that she was having at that time. That was really scary because she completely shut down. She didn't want to play.
Right.
And it was.
And how sad for a dog that was so driven.
That was so good, yes.
And loved it. She was crazy about it. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I think she came back stronger. She was
did.
Crazier.
She came back so good, and then she started winning world championships.
She loved it.
It was wonderful.
Crazy about it.
So that's her story, and the only other one I'll mention is right now I'm going through it with Zin. And she has some different fears. It's more than one thing. She doesn't like her feet being touched. And at one event, she tore her pads. And so then that made her a little bit afraid of just playing in general. And so
she ripped them bad.
There was really blood all over. I didn't know it happened. I get done with my round and she wasn't quite right. I'm like, what's going on? And I looked at myself and I was just covered in blood because doing dog catches, her paws touching me in vaults and things, I had blood all over me. I did not notice it during the routine and I felt terrible. And it was a world championship event, and she actually won world championship that day, which is crazy to even think that she was able to do that. So I'm in the process of trying to figure out, it's not just the foot thing, because
it started there. We believe
right.
Because this was in world final season, and then the next event was only a week or two after, and her feet looked recovered.
They seem fine.
Because you gave her a break. And what are you going to do at that point? I mean, finals, you try it or you don't.
Right.
But if her feet look good, if her
Right.
paws look recovered, then you would think, okay, it should be good to go. But I don't think it was. They maybe weren't totally
right.
To her, at least in Zin's mind.
If she felt anything, especially since she has such sensitive feet, it's the worst thing. It's like, if it was anything else, it may have been okay.
That's something to think about too, though. Like your particular dog, what may be fearful for one dog is not fearful to the next. So like Torch could rip his pads and gosh, he'd probably still play through it and be like, let's go. Like, and you could cut his leg off.
Just like Enzo's a fearful dog overall with life.
Right.
But he tore his pads whenever I hiked one time, and all the other dogs we had to carry back down off this mountain, and he didn't care, so I didn't even check him or anything because I can only carry so many dogs. And he came all the way off the mountain. We go home, and I checked his pads when I got home, and they were gone. He didn't have any pads
and
left.
You wouldn't have known if you looked.
And he just like, nope, I'm not going to show any concern.
Back to Zin. She's so sensitive about her paws, even if it's a nail trim. So something happening to her paws, that's like traumatic for her.
It's bad. And then, so now if she acts a little off, if something's going on, what is it? Is it her paw, or is she thinking anything's bothering me now? I don't want to do it, or I'm worried about it. So it's baby steps, giving them time off, really trying to evaluate, and being just super supportive for her. The last thing to ever do would be, I can't believe they're like having that kind of reaction. Oh, wait, what's going on?
You can't get angry at the dog for being fearful, because that just furthers their fear.
Right.
You have to support them. I mean,
right. And to me, I feel terrible and sad for them. And I want to show them a little bit of confidence to try to build them up and make them feel better about it. But I'm still working with Zin. But she came back and won one this year as well.
Yeah. Well, so something, to know, I think, is that, so when she ripped her paws, she did it during freestyle.
Yes.
And now that's what she doesn't like to play. Right. She likes to play toss and fetch still, but she doesn't really like freestyle because she thinks freestyle means she's going to rip her pads.
Right. So I don't even do freestyle with her at all anymore. After that happened, that's at the end of that season, we stopped except for pairs. She was still into pairs until this year we started seeing a drop in it. So we dropped off pairs freestyle, and I only do toss and fetch with her right now.
And she's nailing it, man.
She's doing great.
So good.
Thanks.
She's super happy.
And because I'm letting her set the pace. What does she want to do?
Yeah. And you're not overdoing it with her. It's just, you're keeping it short, keeping it fun. You really stick to just doing a round. You don't go out and do 25 throws with her and push her. It's like, okay, 5 throws. Let's just keep it, easy for her.
I am genuinely not concerned with any results, despite how incredible, if you know her history or have seen her, she is phenomenal.
Last weekend she hit a perfect score in USD and toss and fetch.
So, but despite how great she is, I just want her to be happy, and I am not going to push her. And if she just decides one day, I don't like toss and fetch right now, she's going to stop playing toss and fetch, at least until maybe she decides she wants to do it again. I won't push her or anything like that.
Yeah.
She's telling me what she wants to do. She's the boss.
Sure.
She gets to do whatever she likes to do. She is.
You never know what she's going to decide she wants to do later on. I mean, obviously she's okay with toss and fetch. So, she likes some aspects of Frisbee. And, maybe it'll all kind of, get figured out. I mean, even I've seen dogs that never wanted to play that, not necessarily out of fear, but just for whatever reason they didn't want to play, and they were able to play later in life because for whatever reason, something sparked in them. They age, they mature, they change.
I know, I don't remember the dog because it's been quite a while, but I remember it was over 10 years ago. It was an agility dog, and this lady's coach said, stop playing with that dog for a full year. Look at your calendar right now, wherever we are, in a year from now, start up again. Do not do anything agility related. It was showing fear, no idea what it is. What if it's an injury you can't detect? Well, in a year, if it's something fairly minor, it's going to completely heal. They'll be totally fine, and you can continue. Don't keep pushing them. It doesn't do anybody any good. You're just going to be sad every time you go out and the dog doesn't want to play.
Right.
And then the dog's going to get worse.
Each time you open up that trauma again,
Yes.
it's just going to ingrain it more. And what you don't want to do is condition them to think, oh, Frisbee's no fun.
Right.
If you kept playing freestyle with her, even though Zen thought it was no fun, she probably wouldn't even play toss and fetch.
That would have been
She
the
would
end of
say,
it.
you know what? I don't even want the disc.
Right.
Forget the whole thing.
I mean, I've seen dogs, unfortunately, you see the handler, the owner pick up a disc and the dog goes and hides. Runs into the crate.
And when they do that, you know they're conditioned in the
disc.
wrong direction.
It's the disc. They see the disc and whatever.
And it's negative to
whatever them. It is that they were afraid of, it doesn't matter anymore. It's just anything disc now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, like you said, conditioned.
They're conditioned. And once they get to that point, it's really hard. And it's really hard to just pull them back and make it fun again. Because, I mean, imagine it's kind of like, take your least favorite food. Like for me, I hate pickles. And like, try to get me to like a pickle. Try to get me to like a pickle. No, here. And here's the pickle. Here, eat it, And I'm like, no, I hate pickles. But maybe if you put, whipped cream on it, it might be better. I don't know. Like, that's kind of the way I think about it. It's like you're trying to force feed them like something that they don't want. And then it just makes them hate it more. And it ingrains it. And it's really hard to come back from that. So I think that's kind of like we said earlier, it's really important to see all of those things from the beginning and notice those subtleties. If you notice they're a little bit like, I don't want to do it. I mean, it all kind of goes in line.
Yeah, you got to pick it up right away.
Right.
Nip it in the bud. You have to.
That's the best way.
If you can.
Now, if you get a little ways and you start seeing things, that's when I think the flag really needs to go, hey, wait.
And then you might need to make an abrupt change at that point.
Yes.
Stop playing for a while or something like that. Just totally change your pattern.
And just a note, this all kind of goes into drive building too, because just like the, force feeding them something that they don't like makes them hate it. What do we always say with drive building? Withhold the disc, do a few throws, and then get them excited about it and put it away. So they want more. They want more. Like, if you eat, 6 scoops of ice cream every day, by the end of the week, you're going to be over ice cream. But if you get a scoop of ice cream a week, you're going to really look forward to that scoop of ice cream you get every week.
I only get a scoop a week, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And just an update or like where we are right now with Zen. She is, when I pick the disc up, she just about runs me over.
She's crazy about it again. Yeah. She's kind of returning to that.
She's just
thing.
Bonkers because she went this year. I didn't play with her this year until the competition, except for that week. The week before the competition, I did a few throws.
Yeah,
I think
a couple of practice.
I think
throws,
at the park we went, and it was the first time. But you gave her a lot
of time off.
Yeah, like 4 months, 5 months of. Or more.
And granted, that she didn't even shut down last year. It was the prior year.
It was the prior year, yes.
So you had already given her some time off. So
yes.
This is kind of a long process.
It's been 2 years of basically no freestyle.
And that's the reality of it is it can take years. So, for the handlers, I think it's really hard to get through this because it can be such a long process.
And you just have to do it. You have to accept it.
You have to accept it, and you can't be upset with your dog about it. And you just have to hope that one day, you figure it out. And if you do the right things, maybe it'll be fun for them again. But you can't have any expectations, and you can't have any pressure on the dog or any negative feelings towards the dog.
Yeah, and that's why there's so many different things you got to try to. You got to change your pattern.
Absolutely.
Some kind of way. You got to do something. Like I did with Key. I changed it to a totally different kind of disc.
Sure.
Even once I think I got her over it, then to make sure not to go backwards with her, I'm not even going to bring those discs that make a louder noise, like a fastback type of disc.
There's no reason to. You didn't need to. You didn't need to.
We got so many options with discs and things, or like Zen with freestyle. Why push her in freestyle if she's still?
You don't have to do it.
I don't have to. She at least likes toss and fetch, and she's way into it. So give that to her.
Yeah, let her enjoy that.
So.
Okay, we've got to talk about Sora because I think Sora's really the reason. Link's the reason we talked about it because I think it's so recent, so relevant. But I think Sora, out of all of our dogs, is probably the most severe on the fear shy thing. So she's kind of like Enzo, where she's very shy by nature.
Yes,
but I think she had more fear.
I say like afraid of the world. Basically, is kind of how I describe it. A dog that just doesn't want to be out there in anything.
Absolutely. She's like, oh no, get me out of here. Take me home.
Just to start it out a little bit, Sora and I are now like besties. I mean, she loves me, I love her. We're super tight.
Sora's got a pretty small circle, and Jeff's in it.
But when she met me, she was terrified of me.
Let's start with, when I got her, because that's where it all stems from. I mean, she came out the womb like this.
Yes,
it's her personality. It's not anything that the breeders did or anything, and it's nothing wrong. That's her personality. She's very shy. She's very uncertain. She's skeptical. Man, she's the biggest skeptic.
She questions everything.
I don't believe this right now. She does question everything. So, when she met me, much like when she met you, which was, only like a day apart.
I think it was a day apart.
I got her and then took her to Jeff's the next day.
Big surprise whenever we get a new puppy.
We're like, here, come meet the puppy.
Usually it's the same day.
Yeah.
But that I remember specifically was not. It was like the next day. I think it was
the next day. So anyway, I got her. For those that don't know, Sora came from Japan. So she had a big trip on the way over here, which, I didn't know Sora from across the ocean. So I didn't really know what she was like, So I think it kind of freaked her out a little bit to fly for that long under the plane, which probably for any dog, even a confident one, would be a little bit jarring.
I think it's a little easier for a puppy that's younger because she was
16 weeks. That's the other thing. So coming from another country, she had to have the rabies shot and all of that,
If you have a 10-week-old puppy, a lot of them don't even know what's going on. So
yeah, it would have been better if she's a little younger.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she was 16 weeks when she came over. So she's old enough to kind of be aware of what's going on. And who knows, maybe she was in a little bit of a fear period. It's hard to say. I don't know. It's hard to say. Anyway, so first got her. I mean, she's terrified. She wanted nothing to do with me. Her brother came with her and he's like a ham. He didn't care. He's like, let's go. He's like, where's the party at? I'm here. And Sora's like, where am I? What is going on? And where are the people that sent me? And why are you people all speaking a different language? She was freaked out. She was, like kind of shell-shocked. So very shy with me. I mean, she didn't even want to really take food from my hand in the beginning because she was really shell-shocked. And she was very shy with you. She's like, oh, don't pet me. Like, she didn't want to be petted. She didn't want affection. She wasn't like your normal, typical, happy, goofy puppy. And I was like, oh, boy, what is going on? So, of course, I did ask the breeders, is she like this normally? And they're like, she's a little shy, but at home, she's not. And I'm like, okay, well, that's good. So maybe she'll get used to things around here and come out of her shell. And eventually she did, but it took a little bit. It took a couple weeks to get her to start, really coming out of her shell. And a couple months in, coming out of her shell more as she built trust with me. But it was hard to build trust with her. She was skeptical. I mean, she thought I was going to do something to her. I have no idea. But she's very skeptical. But she's also incredibly smart. She was nosy about everything for the first week. Every time she went into a new room, she had to check every corner, and she'd look up in the air and, look and check every corner of every room. And, she was taking count of like everything in the house. If she could talk, she could probably tell me where everything was. She's just like that. She's nosy. She takes account of everything. She notices everything. And this is good and bad because it's like, oh, great. The dog that's afraid of everything also notices everything. Like, oh, no. So anyway, it was, a lot of her puppyhood was just building her trust and her confidence. And when the toys came out, she lit up. She was like, oh, game on. They had been playing a little bit of toys with her, but not that much, just a little bit. And she was crazy. Like, I took the disc out and her face lit up. The ears went up. And she was like, I'm game. Let's go. And I was like, this is so weird. The way that I'm going to connect with her, which is very different from all my other dogs, is through Frisbee Dog. I'm going to have to connect with her via dog sport first and then build the connection and the trust later. Because the rest of my other dogs, and this is probably your experience too, Jeff, is that when the dogs come home, it's not necessarily play the thing, play the sport. Yes, it is play the toy, but it's more about just building the love and the connection.
Yes.
And usually they love the snuggles and the scratches behind the ears and the love. And then you kind of show them, look, the toy's fun.
Absolutely, 100% agree with that. I always
Sora.
I always get the relationship first.
Don't pet me. Where's that toy? And I was like, okay, this is weird. So I'm like, you know what? Fine. I'll work with you. I'm not going to try to pet you. Let's, do some Frisbee, some toy and all that. And she was awesome. That was like the way to her heart, like for us, it might be wine. For Sora, it was throw the ball, throw the stuffy, throw the Frisbee, throw a toy. Doesn't even want treats. She wasn't even food motivated the first month I had her. Trying to teach her something with the food, no, had to be the Frisbee. So that's what I did with her. I played Frisbee and toys, and that really got her more connected with me. And so I did a lot of confidence building via toy play. And so I would take her to puppy class and I kind of keep her away from the other dogs and stuff and people. She just wasn't really social right off the bat. And then I noticed, as I had her longer and longer, she became more snuggly. Now she won't get off me. Like she is independent, but my God, time to go to bed. Oh no, she's gonna be right up next to me. And then in the morning, pet me. And like everything is, scratch.
She'll even do that with
ears.
me.
Oh yeah.
She'll do that with me.
She comes up and she nudges up next to you and she's like, yep, that's right. You're gonna scratch me. She loves it now, but it started from playing her game of doing the toys. So that was great. And her puppyhood was awesome because I was like, wow, this dog is an incredible Frisbee dog. That's never going to be the problem. It's not going to be her skill set that's the problem ever. It's going to be her shyness. I have to make this dog believe she's invincible so nothing scares her. And I did that. This girl thought she owned the world. I mean, I got her confident out the gate, man. She was like, nobody's messing with me. I'm here. I'm ready to nail it. Until she was 2 years old. And I took her to an agility trial. And, she's awesome. She loves it. Agility, she's kind of like, I don't get the toy to the end. I don't like that as much. But she still liked doing it. But just trying to get her to do different things. She did like agility, but it wasn't Frisbee to her. But anyway, so the traumatic event happened. And this changed Sora forever. I'm so irritated that this happened because I have done everything to try to prevent any bad thing to make her feel like she's not invincible. Her whole puppyhood's been, make her confident, give her the confidence boost, make her feel like she owns the world. And she was owning the world. And then at that agility trial, it was getting dark. It was lit, like a under the lights agility trial because it went on so long.
I was going to say, were you lit? Or is that what you said?
No. I was lit after. Believe me, I was not happy. And so it was dark, which probably didn't help. And we were a novice, so we were at the end. And I can't remember if we were first to go or second to go. We were one of the beginning novice dogs. And in the same height class was a Rottweiler. And this Rottweiler was incredibly aggressive. And it was an elderly woman that was holding the Rottweiler. And this dog's huge. And so the woman was standing by the gate. So there was no way for me to get to the ring without going by her. And unfortunately, I didn't know that the dog was going to try to go after Sora. And of course, in agility, unlike disc, they're much more, on you about you need to be at the line at this time and that time and all of that. And so, I was making my way towards the ring, but I was pretty far away. And she's standing, by the gate. So I'm making my way that direction. And the dog goes ballistic. I mean, we were probably 30 yards away and I'm making my way over there. And then, as we get 20 yards away, the dog's really yanking her, like she might not be able to hold this dog. The dog's going to go, and I mean ferocious. The teeth, like, slobber coming out. Like, I am going to effing murder you. That's what that dog was like screaming. And Sora just froze. And she was like, what is that? And something changed in her in that moment. And she just went into flight and she was done. She could not come out of it. And my biggest regret was not knowing what effect that had on her, because she had some dogs react to her before, but they were much smaller. So I didn't realize the impact that such a big dog had, because she never really had a big dog go after her like that. We're not around many large breeds very often. So I didn't think it would really affect her much differently than, the other dogs that have gone after her, which was pretty rare. But, there was a couple times that I felt like, okay, she's fine. She didn't get fearful about it. But anyway, so my biggest regret was actually going out there and trying to do the run and make it a positive. I probably should have just left the trial and never went back. And so the woman finally was able to pull the Rottweiler far enough back that she got out of the picture and I was able to get into the ring. But Sora lied down at the line, her head's, turning left and right and like, eyes around like, where is that thing? And is it going to come get me? And she saw the judge and she's like, is that the thing? Like, I think she's like, anything could be the Rottweiler right now. She doesn't know. She's so freaked that anything was freaking her out. And, she did the run, but it wasn't very good. I mean, she was freaked. And so I just got her off and I'm giving her cheese and I'm trying to make it positive. But that was one of those moments where, I didn't know it was too far at the time. Hindsight's 2020, right?
Yep. You never know.
But that was the moment that totally freaked her out. So then it was like, oh no. Like, I felt like Sora had thought I lied to her whole life. Like this dog, is thinking, if I'm thinking like Sora, oh, Kirby's telling me I'm invincible until that thing comes out. There's those things in the world that can eat me. I didn't even know that existed. She's like, I used to be afraid of like fire hydrants and stuff. I didn't know that actually scary things existed. I thought they didn't exist. I thought we proved those were not here. So unfortunately, Sora learned that scary things actually do exist that day. And what further made it worse was that good thing I built her confidence back up again. She was doing pretty good. She was all right. And then it happened again at AWI World Finals. A big, I don't remember what the breed is, but it's like a big, like brown, fluffy, like almost dreadlock type hair. I forget what those are called. It was huge. And, you try to avoid it, but sometimes you're so packed into places that it's really hard to take the long route or, get out of there. And especially, you're up, come on. And you're rushed out there, everything. So this dog, the owner was able to hold this one, but it growled and snarled at her. And that was enough to just send her back into, oh, no, not this again. She was like, I knew this could happen in agility, but I never thought it could happen at Frisbee. That's what Sora's thinking, right? And I'm like, oh no, this is the worst. Because I thought, okay, now I can avoid agility trials because for a while and, maybe we'll build back up to it. But I thought, okay, maybe I can better control the situation at Frisbee. Because Frisbee's a little more lenient when you walk to the line and stuff. There's people. I'm also a little more confident in the Frisbee world too, just because I've been doing it so long. And if it's another competitor, I know a lot of them. And, I have no problem saying, hey, avoid me. My dog doesn't want to be around your dog, So that re-traumatized her. It opened the wound back up. And then, it wasn't that bad. I got her playing again. Actually, I came over and I was like, dude, get Muse out. Let her see another dog that is going to be her friend, and she knows.
And Muse is very calm.
Muse is really calm. Sora
like
knows
that.
Muse, so I thought, okay, maybe that'll kind of get her a little bit out of her shell, make her feel better. And then it happened again at Skyhounds. It was like, okay, can we stop with this? And it was all huge dogs. I'm like, can we like just, can you not bring your gigantic aggressive dogs to the events? I mean, at least bring a Chihuahua. Come on. So, yeah, and it actually happened at UFO Finals in 2024, which is why she shut down Possum Patch. But what's happened is that I'm able to get her out of it a lot quicker. If it happens, she flights. If we leave the competition, she's not taking it with her anymore. It's not baggage anymore from that, is what I'm finding so far, thankfully. But back then, it was baggage, and it did follow her, and it was a lot of building that trust all over again, teaching her again that she's invincible, but even to the next level. Now, not only do you have to fight the scary fire hydrant that's not going to do anything to you, but now you've got to stand in the face of an aggressive, huge dog and be okay with it. I don't think it's fair, personally. I don't think it's fair. But I can't control the spectators at competitions. I can't control other competitors. So, I have to do what I can to make Sora feel that she's the most confident. And I did go back and forth with that question. Maybe I shouldn't compete with her because maybe it's not fun for her. Maybe it's not worth it. But what really changed my mind and what showed me that, playing in our yard, which is small, or playing at the park, it's not the same as doing a competition. This is better. And I'll tell you why I decided I think competitions are for Sora. And she does like the energy. Because when I take her to do a halftime show, a whole different dog comes out of Sora. That is her heaven. When there is energy and people are screaming and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people all around and they are screaming and the music's going and she's just like a piranha, man.
Wow.
That is her favorite thing. And she's like, let's go. And I'll tell you why she's like that. She's never been attacked by another dog at a halftime show. So, looking back at competitions, I evaluated and I said, okay, if I can make sure she's never going to get, quote unquote, assaulted by another large dog ever again, competitions are for her. I have to make her believe that, and I have to make her believe that, if it does happen, that it's okay. It's not going to carry on with you for the rest of your life. It might scare you in the moment, but we don't need to be thinking about it 2 weeks later. Of course, I don't want that. It's not ideal, but, at the very least, it's not going to stick with her and traumatize her for her whole life. So all of this story to get to, how did I get there? How did we do this? I feel like Sora's pretty confident now, and I'll tell you, like, today we were approached by a big black lab off leash. You know who wasn't scared? Sora. When we've passed by some big dogs lately while hiking, big scary looking dogs, you know who's not scared? Sora. Sora's like, yeah, they're fine. They're not going to get me. So, and she's not like that all the time. It's not foolproof perfect, but it's a lot better. It's so much better. So how did we get to that point? How did I help her face her fears and, make her feel invincible again? So one of the things, just like with Link, I started with the noise. What is it? Desensitization. I can't say it, apparently.
Just say
I learned something.
Desensi. Desensi.
Yeah, desensi. Okay, I could say desensitized. So I desensitized her to barking. What was really funny was, so I found some sound clips on YouTube when I got the Chihuahua barking. And it started with small dogs, which she's used to. Like, she knows small dogs. We have small dogs. They bark. She's like, whatever. She didn't care. She's like, cool, free treat, sweet. Then when I got to, like, the Doberman sound, the, like, big dog sound, she was like, ooh, I don't like that. That sounds a little scary. And I'm like, bingo, she doesn't like that noise. So bring out her favorite thing, string cheese. Or steak or chicken. Any of those things will do for Sora. But, man, she does love string cheese. So, woof. string cheese. Woof, string cheese. So I'd start with just the barking. And then once she wasn't afraid of that, I moved up to the snarling, the aggressive growling. And that freaked her out at first. But of course we were at home, so it just kind of, she jumped, but she wasn't like too scared. Just kind of like, yeah, I don't need to relive that, thanks. And I just keep tossing the treats, desensitize her to that noise. And then I took it even further. One of her favorite things to do, and Jeff knows this because this is her little secret signal. She picked this up from Torch. So she does like a little, like a snap of her teeth and a little, like a little tiny bark. She picked this up from Torch, which is really funny. Torch just does this naturally all the time. And Sora started doing it, and I put it on cue. Well, she loves it. Man, that pulls her out of her shell. She's turtled up in her shell, and I give her that cue to do that. Ooh, she comes out. She's like, yeah. And the tail goes up, and she is so happy to look on her face. She's like, yeah, I like doing that. I want to bark. So then when the other dogs would snarl and stuff, I'd get her to snap at me and bark. Like, yeah, bark back. I feel like it's like teaching a little kid karate or something. Like, you're going to be brave, And that brought out like some excitement in her, kind of made it fun almost. But that wasn't enough because it was like, okay, so it's just the noise. So now we've got the noise in the background. But that's a fake dog. There's no dog there making the noise. So it's not really the real thing. Then I thought, well, let's bring in a real dog to bark. And so the first one I did was Kaya because she barked on cue. I think I had asked you, I said, do any of your dogs bark on cue? You're like, no, they just bark all the time.
Yeah, they bark. Well, I don't want to ask them to bark.
You're like, no, I don't want him to do it. So I asked Paul with Kaya, actually, because Kaya knew how to bark on command. And I said, Paul, bring Kaya over, and I want you to get Kaya to bark on cue. And Sora knows Kaya. That's her friend, who's a cattle dog. And so he got Kaya barking. And she's like a little bit unsure at first. And she's like, well, that's my friend. She's not going to eat me. So then I got Sora to bark with Kaya. And they're barking together. And they're having a barkathon. I'm sure the neighbors loved it. So luckily no animal control came in the house to say there was 30 minutes of barking. So anyway, but that kind of got her thinking, oh, okay, look, my friend Kaya barks and I can bark too. And then I started kind of taking her around and walking her at the park. And when we'd see another dog, I'd ask her to do that little snap of the teeth and look at me. I started training her. So it was two things, really. I started training her to automatically redirect. So when she'd see another dog, I want her to just look at me and stare. And then the second thing is to, do her little, her special cue. The look at me would get her to stop fixating on the other dog and questioning, are they going to eat me? Are they going to eat me? What's their intention? And get her to redirect and look at me. And then I'd reward her for that. So every time we saw a dog, Sora, and then I'd just treat. And then eventually it was like we'd slowly walk by the other dog, and when she would start to look at me without me even asking, mega treats for that. So then she built this behavior of, I see another dog, look at mom, get a treat. So then we started doing that. But that was good. That made her feel comfortable, but not invincible. And I want Sora to feel invincible. So the next thing was to add her little clacking of the teeth. And we got to come up with a name for that. It's like Torch's signal, I guess. So it's Torch's move. So she would, look at me, and then I'd ask her to do Torch's move. And she's looking at me right now thinking about doing it. So you may hear Sora barking in the background. And that would get her tail to come up. And she was happy, and she'd kind of like do this dance while she's walking with her tail up at me. And I'm like, okay, this is good. So if I can get her to just automatically, when she sees a dog, turn and look at me and give me a little, perfect. Awesome. So that's what we've done. Whenever we see a big dog, now most of the time I don't ask her to do the her every time. But if we see a big dog, then I might ask her to do that. But lately, I haven't even been doing that because she's been so confidently just walking past and looking at me and not freaking out.
And that's exactly what I do with all of my dogs when they do show fear of other dogs, particularly if they have some sort of fear period or whatever it might be, or on a hike or just anywhere. It is, as soon as they see that dog, you want them just to start looking at you and basically just don't worry about the dog. Oh, I'm going to get a treat.
I do that now with all of my dogs. So ever since Sora, now I even do it with Link, who loves other dogs. And what's been great about that is maybe a dog's passing by us that's kind of a jerk, and they're kind of dogging him from far away and they're growling. Link, look at me. And he looks at me and trots right past with a beautiful heel because I conditioned that right from the beginning. So I learned from Sora, it helped her face her fears, but maybe I should just do this with all of my dogs, whether they're fearful or not. It's a good thing. So I love that skill for any dogs, fearful or not, but especially helps Sora overcome her fear. So that was one of the things. Oh, let me think about what's some other things that we did. Another really good one that I learned recently that I like a lot. This is credited to Karen Mulders in the Netherlands. She gave me this tip last year. I love this tip. So really unique. She puts the treats in a dog poop bag and kind of treats the poop bag like a clicker noise. So basically train the dog like you're using a clicker, but instead of clicking, rustle the poop bag. So the poop bag makes a noise, right? And you've always got a poop bag on you, right? So it's perfect. That's why this is so, so brilliant. So rustle the poop bag and give them the treat. They need to learn to associate that rustling the poop bag results in a positive thing.
Yeah, and I think people can, if you want to think of it this way, so many dogs get used to if you're putting your hand in your pocket, oh, what is that? Mm-hmm. And it's the same kind of thing. They get that behavior whenever they hear it or see it or whatever, that treats. So you always got the poo bag. You could just rustle a little bit and then they're going to look right at you. It's the same thing as reaching in to get a cookie, but they could hear it also. So
and you pretty much always have a poop bag on you or have it tied to your leash or whatever. And it's just another way to help add positive reinforcement to their whole circle. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, you touched on this earlier. This is something that helps Sora a lot. But you talked about with Enzo, how you always would kind of have a plan. You go from point A to point B and then go back and, don't lollygag around or push them into scenarios that are going to freak them out. So I believe that there's actually like official dog training terminology for this. And my understanding is that it's called the training loop. Huh. And so I actually learned this in an agility class from Lori. Her last name's escaping me right now, but this is great. I love this. What I love about this training loop is that, so you take the dog from a safe space. Let's put this in competition terms. So for me, my dog's safe space is the RV because that's where they kennel. I rarely set up a tent because I've been doing this too long. I've gotten too lazy to set up a tent. And so it's just so much easier to keep them in the RV where there's air conditioning. It's nice and cool. They're super comfortable in there. They're used to it. It's their home. It's their second home really. But anyway, it's their safe space. So now what I do is I'm very careful of where I take Sora and I map out a path before I go. And a lot of times at a competition, so we may have a round coming up. Now, locally, this isn't a big deal. We don't have that craziness at our events. But it's something like a World Finals where it's super crowded. You don't know who's going to be where and what spectators with what dogs. And of course, you can't expect everything, right? Like you can't anticipate everything, but you can be aware. I can take note that that one with the giant black Cane Corso over there, maybe I don't go over there. That one with the gigantic Bernese Mountain Dog, maybe I avoid that. Even if they're nice, let's not test it. It's not worth testing. So I can kind of make a path to, okay, so how am I going to get to the field where I need to be and avoid all that? I don't care how long it takes. I'll go, walk an extra mile if that's what it takes. But I evaluate my path right before I go. Then I take Sora and my path if it includes the warm-up is included in my pass. So I might go to the, little side field where nobody's at and do a little warm-up with her. And then I take my roundabout route to the field. But I've always tried to plan this out so that there's not really any obstacles in her way, or, plan as best as I can. Like I said, can't anticipate everything, but you can get around a lot of it. You can avoid a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
that's something to consider. And so the training loop is really where you take the dog from point A and maybe a point B if there's a point B, but then you go back to your original safe space. And then at the end, it always ends in the safe space. So that's another reason it's, I think, helpful for Sora to stay in the RV, because like I humanize the dogs a little bit. I think dogs can be introverted or extroverted, and I think Sora's super introverted. And I think just, hearing people talk, dogs barking, all the excitement, I think it tires her out. She loves it in the moment when she's going to go play. But overall, at the end of the day, she's going to be exhausted. So keeping her in the RV, it's all quiet. She's happy. It's her safe space. And we return to that each time. So I'm always pretty careful about where I take her and walk around. Another thing I do is take her out with my other dog. I've noticed she's a lot more confident when she's with another dog, especially like Torch or Flair, and now Link. She really likes to be with another dog. That was one of the ways that I helped build her confidence back up when she got afraid, was to play double dog toss and fetch, where I'd send one dog do a throw and wait for that first dog to come back, and then I'd send Sora and do a second throw. So she'd play alongside Torch and Flair. And that helped boost her confidence, because if Flair's going to go out there and get the Frisbee, it really can't be that bad. And she's very competitive and wants to show that she's better than Flair or better than Torch, or I can do what they're doing. So that kind of helped her feel confident, like, oh, they're all the way out there and nobody's eating them, so I guess I can go out there too. That was one of the things that I, did on the side to help boost her confidence. So, I mean, a lot of it is preventing it. You don't want to let the dog get back to that trauma zone. So, for Sora, in her case, avoiding big dogs. That's it. Avoid, if I've got to go farther away, if I've got to take the longer route, it's worth it. Why, risk her getting freaked out when I can, avoid that big dog? Not in all situations, is that possible? But I'm very vigilant now about trying to make it possible, right?
That was, like with Punky, he had a little bit of fear when he was younger with both dogs and people. And it didn't seem to be any kind of phases, really. It was just, he was always fearful of them. And he'd bark and things like that. And I hadn't talked about him yet because he came out of it so well. And the way I did it was, when it first happened, I took him on a hike and he just lost his mind. I mean, he was just screaming and yanking on the leash and going nuts. I picked him up and carried him back to the car. And then for 6
You realized it was too much for
him. It was way too much.
You didn't know.
So he didn't go back out for 6 months to do something like that. And then what I did was I waited until just one day I decided, okay, this is about time to try it again. So let's take him to a different place, maybe a different time when I kind of know there won't be a lot of people around, and test him out. And when I went out, it was like, okay, but when he saw something, he was not quite right. So another 3 months or 6 months, he didn't get to go. And then eventually one day I took him and he was just totally fine.
Yeah.
And then you see how he is now. He's just great.
Thing. Yeah, he's great. Yeah.
So don't keep putting him in that situation when it's just making it worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Some other things just to, kind of wrap this up is that fear isn't a one size fits all. What's fearful for one dog may not be fearful to another. Sora's not afraid of planes, trains, and automobiles. She's not afraid of any of those noises, but she's afraid of other dogs. Link, he's loves other dogs, and if they go after him, he's kind of like, really? You're going to front on me? And he takes it really, really well if another dog is kind of being a jerk towards him. He doesn't. clam up.
And similarly, they can progress,
Mm-hmm.
and it could turn into something totally different. Where, like for example, we've had
could bleed into other things.
Right. I've had a few of my dogs get noise sensitive from fireworks, because we get fireworks all the time, unfortunately, and they start bothering them. They start getting worse, and then the next thing you know, it's any little thing. You just drop something on the ground and you see them jump out of their skin, and it's because now it's any noise is bothering them. And so it's
partially
difficult.
Because they're already triggered by the fireworks, that they're already freaked out. They're just going to get more scared. Once they're in that true like flight state, you kind of have to just lay off them. You can't push them when they're at that state. It has to be very, very minimal. I mean, I think the theme of the episode here is very, very incremental, small amounts to get them used to anything.
Be very careful.
If it's too much, you have to avoid it until, they mature, or, you have to very slowly bring these things in if you're going to do that. Or, pick your battles. Avoid it if it's possible. Sometimes it's easier to just avoid it. Then, dogs don't have to be perfect, right? None of them are. Actually, I have one more thing to say. Also consider your own mental state in all of this. If you're fearful, if you're upset, you're going to upset your dog. If you're freaking out because they won't play Frisbee, you're just freaking your dog out. And they're like, why are you freaked out? Now I'm freaked out. So that's always something to really keep in mind too.
Yeah, I'll give a great example of this. I used to watch a lot of sports. I don't watch as many anymore, but I'd watch baseball, basketball, hockey. Did I say football? Football. Football was my main one. Football and hockey are my two main sports that I'd watch. And I get into it. Okay. And they're swearing and yelling at the TV and complaining and all that kind of stuff. And then one day, I'm not paying any attention to the dogs when I'm doing this either. I'm so focused on this. And one day Jen said, you're upsetting Enzo whenever you watch the games. And I'm like, really? She said, yeah, whether it's good or bad, I could cheer because we scored or whatever.
It's just that too much.
It's too much energy, especially out of nowhere, because usually in sports, it's everyone all at once, right? Kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I said, really? And when she told me that, I said, okay, I'm not doing it anymore. I won't make any sounds. I won't do anything. And I just simply stopped. You have to have a lot of self-control for, it has to be in you for a lot of these kinds of things to be able to do it right. You have to just make a decision, do it, and do it right. I'm not saying I always do it right either. I'm not suggesting that. That's absolutely not true. But in that particular situation, it was pretty obvious what the problem was.
And it was very easy for you
for me to fix it.
Freaking out at the TV.
and
it was easier to do that than it was to condition the dogs to you doing that.
And then I realized also I'm kind of being stupid. So hey, for any guys or girls out there who go bananas when you're watching sports, I'm saying I was an idiot for doing it. And I'm calling myself that. You can evaluate yourself on how you feel about it. But no, it's true. I was like, I shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't be acting like that. I was acting a fool. And I wasn't about to do that anymore.
You're at home. You sound like you were at the game.
Yeah, well, I don't go to games anymore. I don't hardly watch sports. I watch a little bit now.
That's not what I heard. I heard you're going to a hockey game, but that's another story.
It's not for my team, so I don't really care.
So is there anything else you want to add?
Love your dogs. Love your dogs. That's what I always like to say.
I think that kind of wraps it up. I hope our stories helped you. I mean, every dog's individual, so you really just have to learn everything about them. And yes. I think where I want to leave it at is, if your dog is fearful or shy or has some issues like that, be patient and be positive and no pressure.
Never give up.
Yep. Just be hopeful, be patient, be positive, and don't pressure them. And, you never know. Maybe they'll come back to it and enjoy themselves more than ever. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.